All right, this is Jim Morentz of the XchangeCore community. I want to welcome everybody to a peek into the Vigilant Guard 17 exercise. The connection to the exercise is made through the California Earthquake Clearinghouse that has brought together a number of different organizations, and they have been playing for the last 3.5 days in the exercise. And during this next 3-hour period, you're going to be hearing from a number of different people who are part of the exercise, who will be coming in, giving us a glimpse at some of the tools that they're using, all of which are interconnecting through XchangeCore. So with that as an introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Ann Rosinski, who is the chair of the California Earthquake Clearinghouse, to begin with a look at what's been happening using one of the tools. And then she'll introduce additional people who will offer up a summary of the tools that they've been using as part of the exercise. So with that, let me hand it over to you, Ann.
Thank you, Jim. So first of all, I thank you for the opportunity to show you what we're doing. And I what I'll do is briefly give you a little bit of an overview of the Clearinghouse for anybody who's not familiar with us, and then talk a little bit about what the exercise is all about and who some of the participants are, and then focus in on the information sharing aspect, which is a key part of what the Clearinghouse does. And I'm just going to give you a little tour of some of the data, and then we have a number of our partners. The Clearinghouse is all about collaboration, and we don't exist without our partners. So we have a number of key organizations and representatives from those different partners who are going to also speak this morning. We have Brenda Jones from the USGS, who's going to talk about the USGS Hazards Data Distribution Service. We have Tom McMillan from Western Municipal Water District, one of our utility operators and critical infrastructure partners. Maggie Glasgow from NASA, who they provide a number of important products. Maria Solis with the California Public Utilities Commission, who's coordinating the participation of the critical infrastructure folks. And then also Phil Balin from City of Walnut Creek, who's also the chair of the Northern California, or excuse me, chair of the vice chair of the California GIS Council, excuse me, and he's also our Clearinghouse information lead, and so he's been integrated with the Guard up at their J2 headquarters, and so he's been working with them directly. So we've got a lot of things that we're going to go over this morning, and by all means, if anybody has any questions as we go along, please ask. This is we really value feedback, and we want to improve. So as we go through the discussion this morning, please feel free to ask questions. So just by way of introduction, the Clearinghouse is an organization that was founded in 1971 after the San Fernando earthquake, and we are an organization primarily of science and engineering organizations. And it started because after the San Fernando earthquake, a number of organizations were out collecting information about the earthquake, the real earthquake, and they were running into each other, and they recognized it would be a lot more efficient if they coordinated directly. So the USGS and Cal OES and California Geological Survey, Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, a number of different, local universities, and so that's how it started. And since then, over the last 45 years, the Clearinghouse has been formalized in California. It's now part of our Public Resources Code, and the responsibility for managing the Clearinghouse is with the California Geological Survey, and our partners who work with us to direct the Clearinghouse are the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute, as I mentioned, the U.S. Geological Survey, the California Office of Emergency Services, the USGS, and the California Seismic Safety Commission. But anyone who's interested in post-earthquake information and either contributing or who has a need for that kind of information is welcome to participate in the Clearinghouse. In the South Napa earthquake 2 years ago, we activated immediately afterwards. We opened up a physical Clearinghouse, and we had over 100 people from 40 different organizations show up on the first day. And that was just a magnitude 6 earthquake. So for this exercise, The scenario is a major Southern California earthquake. It would be a 7.8 earthquake, so it would be orders of magnitude more complicated, much more damaging, and the response would be very, very complicated. So we expect a similar level of participation for a major event. As I said, this exercise is the National Guard's exercise, the Vigilant Guard exercise, and the scenario is actually to understand the response to multiple major disasters virtually simultaneously. So the exercise actually started last week in Nevada with a simulated earthquake on the Frenchman Fault. So the Nevada Guard activated for that. And then a few days later, there was the scenario called for another major earthquake, this time in California, and not an aftershock for the Nevada earthquake. So it was the National Guard responding to two major incidents at the same time. So our participation is with the Clearinghouse is through the Guard, and anytime there's an opportunity for us to practice our response capabilities, we jump at it, because fortunately we don't get major earthquakes every day, but on the other hand, not having those opportunities to practice and hone and refine what we do is something that we're trying to address. So anytime there's an earthquake-themed exercise, we participate. And so we've been working directly with our Guard partners, Major Stromberg and Sergeant Corona up at J2 headquarters, and we've also integrated a number of our Clearinghouse personnel at different Guard sites throughout the state. So and one other thing, the Clearinghouse, the Guard also provided some overflights for the Clearinghouse through the coordination with the Cal OES Air Coordination Group. So I just wanted to acknowledge those partners who provided the support and the background and for this exercise. So the information you'll see that I'm going to walk you through is from some of our different Clearinghouse partners. The Clearinghouse, our role is, to clarify, is to provide information about the damaging impacts of the earthquake, the major engineering and geologic issues. And so, as I said, all of our partners, or anyone who's interested is welcome to participate. And the challenge there is that the Clearinghouse never directs any Clearinghouse partners' activities or tells them what tools or technology to use. So, and every organization has their own capabilities. They have their own tools and common operating pictures and viewers that they all use. But the Clearinghouse has to figure out how to make the information available to everybody. And so that's why we've been leveraging the XchangeCore technology, because it allows us to share out all of the earthquake information that our Clearinghouse subject matter experts are collecting and get it to all of our partners, including FEMA and Cal OES, to the Guard, to critical infrastructure operators. The data that's coming in is agnostic, and it should be able to be viewed on any tool. And so our Clearinghouse tool is the spot-on tool that you're seeing right now. And but there are other tools that are used. The National Guard is using Google Earth, so they're able to view our information on their Google Earth. Our other partners are using ArcGIS Online. They're able to add our Clearinghouse XchangeCore feeds to their Google Earth to see the information. So we have a really good. This is a great way for us to maximize the usefulness of the data and make it available to everybody that needs it in the most efficient way. And if you'll pardon me for 1 second, I'm going to try to find. I wanted to show in our exercise preparation documents, I wanted to show here we go. this is, I want to just give everybody just as an overview of what the exercise looks like in terms of information sharing. This is our deployment diagram using XchangeCore. So the Clearinghouse has an XchangeCore set up, and it's able to connect to these different types of applications. These are not the only ones that it can connect to, but these are some of the more widely known ones, and so we wanted to be able to demonstrate that. These are some of the partners that we've worked with in this exercise who were using these tools. And then there are also additional data sources being shared through our Clearinghouse XchangeCore. We are also sharing information with FEMA, with SABRE, which is a private sector business outage XchangeCore implementation, and then are also our partners at NASA who provided a number of different earthquake products, remote sensing type of products that are able to be viewed, again, on all these different, shared out to all these different connected applications so that all of these organizations have the ability to see that information. So with that, I'm going to just walk you through a little bit about the data and the information and what happened during the exercise. So this is our Clearinghouse tool that we make available to anybody who is responding through the Clearinghouse. It's a field data collection tool, and it allows our Clearinghouse personnel to be able to be out in the field. So here's somebody with Southwest Gas. You can see a number of people out here. Who's out here? We have, there's Jim. He's out here. And let's see, who else is out here? I keep hitting Jim. There we go. Let's see. Whoops. Brian Swanson from CGS. So we have a number of people are out there, and then they can see and report in on what's going on. So Brian is near the California Public Utilities Commission office. There's some incidents near him. There's some damaged structures. So there's a real broad selection of information, and you can see there's a lot going on. So let me kind of walk you through how the exercise has progressed and how the data has come in some ways to sort through the data and make a little bit more sense of it. So one thing I'm going to do is we have a filter capability. So what I did is I created some filters. So I'm going to show you, first of all, just the information that came in on the first day. So I turn that filter on. Take a minute. Okay, so you can see, so on day one of the exercise, there were just a few, there were not a lot of incidents that came in. And in a real event, that's what we would expect. It's going to take the Clearinghouse time to get established and for our partners to be able to show up with the Clearinghouse and be able to start reporting in. I should clarify, the Clearinghouse is not going to provide information on every single incident. We are not going to solve everybody's problems. But what we're trying to do is, where possible, if our Clearinghouse scientists and engineers are able to if they're in the vicinity of damage and they're able to report in on it, if we can provide clarity on even just a few incidents, that helps bring order to chaos. So you can see the first day we had a few incidents that were starting to be reported. This is, whoops, zoom out a little bit. This is the USGS shake map incident. You can click on that. And we had the USGS, we had their shake map that was provided. I'm going to go back to that in just a minute. So we did have some information that came in immediately. The shake map is something that's produced automatically and shows up right away. We had a few reports of damage. Now let's go to the next day. So I'm going to turn on, okay, let's add the 15th and see what happens there. It's going to take a second. And there are a lot of incidents, so it takes a while. So now all of a sudden you see we have all, and if you zoom out, it will group the incidents to make the map a little bit less busy. And you can see this is the area where the earthquake happened, and you can see a high concentration in the kind of the Long Beach area, and fewer incidents as you move out. As you zoom in, all those points start to resolve, and you start seeing more and more information. And all of these points on the map have a corresponding description down in the list here, and the list can be sorted by distance. I have, just to get you oriented, you can go to your profile under the tools, and you can set your area of interest. That's the map view, and then how often the spot on will refresh. Now, since I have my area of interest set to a wide distance, 200 miles, and there are so many incidents, it does take a little while for it to refresh through all those, but they all do show up. So to make the map a little bit more manageable and the data a little bit more manageable, we can do some other filtering as well. So these are presets that we've, that I created, for the exercise, and you can make anything you want. It can be a keyword, it can be a type of incident, and so let's take a look at, if you're a structural engineer and you're interested in unreinforced masonry structures, you can sort on historic structures. Let me just scroll up here. I'll just take a second. And so, I'll just take a second. And you can see, okay, so that big, messy map full of lots of pins, now it's fewer, and it's just showing me the types of information that I'm interested in. And these are all those incidents show up here. And you can see it also tells you if somebody's visited and if there's any information. So here's one where somebody added some information to it. So here, I guess that was me. I didn't realize that. You can add pictures. So here's a historic structure. Here's showing no damage. So everybody knows that I visited to that location, so they can, since I've already visited that location, they should be going somewhere else to be investigating. The idea is to use this information. People can look at this map, they can look at this information and see, these are the spot watch, these are instances where we have an unconfirmed report of damage, and these are things that we simulated pulling off of social media and saying, hey, this is what we're seeing, can somebody go out there and take a look? The Clearinghouse volunteers can look at this list, they can say, okay, here's an incident that's near me and nobody's looked at it yet, I'm going to go there, so that we can make the most use of everybody's time and talents. So that's one way of making the data a little bit more useful. Something else, if you're interested in water, critical infrastructure. So I added a couple of filters, one for, we had some water agencies, critical infrastructure operators providing information, and we also had from the energy sector, CalISO provided some locations of some of their facilities. And so it's just going to take a second to filter through. But this was something that was important from the, so there it goes. You can see it, the map refreshed, and now you're seeing only the incidents that I've requested through my filter. This is a really big, important advance for the Clearinghouse. In the South Napa earthquake, the surface fault rupture immediately following the earthquake at 3:20 in the morning. Scientists were out very early Sunday morning, and they were measuring offset along the fault. And initially, Sunday morning, they were measuring 5 centimeters of offset. 24 hours later, they were measuring 20 centimeters of offset at the same location. And there continued to be water line breaks because of that afterslip. And for those of you not familiar, when there's a major earthquake, the epicenter, the rupture point is in, beneath the surface, and it takes time for that slip to be accommodated along that entire fault surface. So there's a lag time, in other words, between when the ground shifts and the surface is able to respond to that shift. And so there continued to be movement. And the scientists and engineers who were supporting the Clearinghouse were coming in at the end of the day for our briefings and saying, hey, it would be really useful if we could find out from the utilities where those breaks are, because it helps us understand where the rupture happens and some of the regional impacts. So we've been working very closely with our utility and critical infrastructure partners, and they were able to provide some information. And to provide a little bit more information, a little bit better understanding, we also have some GIS layers that are available. So we can turn on the shake map. There's the shake map, and now you can see where those critical infrastructure, so here is a transmission station, and where that is in the context of the high intensity shaking. We can see here's a Riverside public water utility that is in an area of high shaking. So the U.S., so what's important here is we're seeing information coming in from the USGS that they're providing on the shaking hazard information. And then the utility operators, we have the power utilities and the water, there's interdependencies for power, and the water agencies need power to run their pumps, so they need to coordinate across each other. And so they're seeing each other's information. They're also seeing it in the context of some of the geologic information as well. So everybody has better situational awareness about what's happening. Some other layers that we have here. Let's see, we have. Let's see. So there's the shake map. We also have some CGS liquefaction zones. I work for the California Geological Survey, and we provide hazard information. So now you can see here's some information. Here's a public water facility that happens to be located in a liquefaction zone. So that gives the operators an understanding of why that damage might occur. So again, we're seeing information coming in from different sources. It gives everybody a better understanding of what's actually happening from the earthquake. Let's see, let's take a look at some of the other information. We have NASA has provided a wealth of information. So they provided let's see, let's take a look at the, there's estimation, building, mortality. Let's look at mortality in the Cajon Pass area. So they've done some modeling, and this is showing by census tract and based on shaking where they're expecting, where mortalities are expected. So here's a transmission line down in an area where there's potential for loss of life, and having the NASA model results out there again gives the clearinghouse partners a sense of where there's the most critical need for information, and they can ground truth that. They can, if they see damage. Another type of information that's provided by the JPL team is there's a highway bridge damage. They've done loss estimation modeling on different critical infrastructure. So for instance, in the Cajon Pass area. So now these dots are these are model predictions of where there's a potential for damage to structures. And you can see, again, so this is the black polygon is where there's an estimate of a potential for loss of life, and there's also a potential for a highway bridge collapse. So that might be a reason that there would be, loss of life. So it's helping everybody understand where there's a potential for damage, and then be able to deploy to those regions and contribute their resources and their knowledge to what's going on. So really, really valuable. Again, the idea is that there's information coming from multiple sources. Everybody has information about the disaster. If we can show it together, we all have a better understanding of what we need to do and how to coordinate with each other. So that was a really important. And then I'm also going to show, we also had our partners with the California Department of Public Health. They did a chlorine plume release. So again, another really critical hazard. And so that's showing the Cajon Pass area. So we're showing also where the city of Riverside is, has a damaged structure, but they're not going to be able to go out and do any repairs there until this hazardous contamination plume is taken care of. Nobody can go in that area. So by Riverside seeing the information from public health, Riverside can make sure that they're not putting any of their repair people in danger, in further danger. So again, really great situational awareness already. And here's somebody, that's probably me. Yep, that's me. I'm standing in the plume. So, and I'm in one of the areas where there's a potential for damage. So I need to move myself out of there. So this is a great example of how having this information from multiple sources can be of real value to different groups. And of course, all of this information that we're seeing in our Clearinghouse Spot On tool, because of our connection with XchangeCore and other different applications, is also accessible on other applications as well. And we can get into that in just a moment, but Brenda Jones from the USGS, are you on the line?
I am.
Oh, great. Okay. Brenda offered to give us some insights into the USGS participation in the exercise. So I'm gonna pause and hand it over to her, and then we'll continue. So again, thank you, Brenda. Go ahead.
Thank you, Anne. This really is just the USGS ARROS participation. This is outside of the earthquake program and what they're doing to support the exercise. And we have actually just loaded some pre-event Landsat imagery on HDDS. We were waiting for the Guard to see if they would upload some of the data that they collected. And we haven't gotten any notification of that yet, I don't believe. And so if there is data that people collect that they would like to share, whether it's image data or if it's some of these polygons and things you've been showing, we can help with distribution for those if it's necessary, map products. And we also have a tool called the Collection Management Tool where you can input areas of interest where you would like satellite imagery collected, and then the requirements for the kind of imagery you need. And basically, Anne, I think that's it. Thank you. Anne, are you there?
Yes, I was just on mute. So okay. I was going to say, so what I did, and I'm going to add right now, is a filter. What I did during the exercise is I added a location on the map for the USGS, and I put the link to the USGS HDDS site, and I also sent out an alert through our Clearinghouse Spot On tool to make sure everybody was aware of that information, that valuable information that's available, because we wanted, one of the goals we're trying to do is orchestrate information and make it more easily discoverable and usable to people. So I have a link to the HDDS website. So if people find that in the Clearinghouse, if they search on USGS, they can find that link. It'll take them right to your site. And I also have a screenshot of some of the Landsat data that's available, a view of the browser. So we definitely wanted to give them that. And also I let them know that there's going to be some HDDS maintenance on the system yesterday. So I wanted to make sure that nobody was caught unawares there. So really appreciate all of your support and all of the resources that you are providing. And I also know that you've been working very closely with Derek Cantar of the Cal OES Air Coordination Group and Major Stromberg with the military, and also Phil Dalen with the Clearinghouse, to help us develop workflows to be able to put in information requests and make those requests available to everyone, so everyone knows where imagery is being requested, and then when the missions are flown, being able to have a repository for that imagery, so again, it's accessible to as many people as possible. So the work that you're doing is just fantastic, and we really, really appreciate all your support and continued participation.
And just one note for people that don't want to download imagery or don't have the resources for that, there is an option on HDDS where you can select the imagery you want and create a temporary web mapping service. And that data will be available in that web mapping service for 2 weeks.
Terrific. And I'm showing your website right now. And I'll brief little tour here. So you can see there's also the New Zealand earthquake, but you can, if you're on the USGS HDES site, you can click on 2016 events and you'll see the Vigilant Guard, and then you'll see there's public information, and you can select and add additional criteria, and it'll show you the imagery that's available. So it's a really, really useful tool. One of the things that the Clearinghouse is trying to do is for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we don't have a permanent funding source. The Clearinghouse really is a collaboration, and it's supported by our various partners. In my organization, California Geological Survey, I've been very fortunate that they've, been very supportive of our Clearinghouse efforts. But what we're trying to do is make use of these different resources that are already out there, like the HDDS service. It's a terrific service. A lot of people don't know about it, so we want to shine a spotlight on it. And again, the XchangeCore capability, which is also free and open source, so it fits our budget just fine. So again, these are some of the goals for the Clearinghouse and some of the things that we're trying to do. Are there any questions so far? Anybody? Any questions?
To ask a question, you need to raise your hand in that little webinar control panel that you have there, and you do that by going over and clicking on the box where it says you're raising your hand, and then I'll see you raise the hand, then I can turn your voice on. So a little more complicated, but I see no hands raised right now, Ann.
Okay, great. So just to show everybody. Okay, so we'll continue. So let's see. Well, actually, Jim, do you want to go ahead and show the Google Earth version, our data in Google Earth?
Sure, I'll bring that up. I'll make myself the presenter and show my screen and bring up a Google Earth and close that down. All right, now you have some representation. Google Earth is another popular alternative. I happen to have a number of things floating around here right now. And let me turn off. Maggie Glasgow will be talking about her tracking overlays and modeling components here about the strain magnitude. So I'll leave that to her and turn that off right now. But this set of incidents that you see taking place here are exactly the same ones that Ann's been talking about. I've got public water coming out of Riverside with all of this information about the providers, the 6-inch main, the cast iron, and that it is currently in a shutdown status. And out here, a report that has been in from, this is a fault rupture that is at Lowe's, in the Lowe's parking lot, and has an azimuth of 12, a plunge of 4, and a length of 25, and that has come from the USGS Field Notes tool that can be accessed through spot-on response and thus associate with an incident, as well as be able to be used independently, in which case it creates incidents that are part of spot-on response and part of through XchangeCore. Here we've got a few folks that have been looking at this exchange, and again, this one is just a report. I'm looking for something that has a perhaps has a picture associated with it or something like that. A landslide inventory. Yeah, let's see what we have here. This is the, oh, well, let's give it a try. Okay, what do we have? All right. Didn't want that. Now that did not load the KML, but I thought it might directly. Landslide inventory, model descriptions, concentrations. This is the California Geological Survey hazard zone information. What else do we have here? A hazard report. There's from Jim Wolbrink. Nobody's putting any pictures in, Ann. Ah, maybe that's it. We have Ante from the USGS or Department of Conservation. And let's see.
Survey.
There we go. That's some significant earthquake right there. So that has been part of the shared information, came out of the the California Geological Survey, and there's some debris from an overpass, a road closed. Here's an observed landslide. Any observed landslides with photographs? No.
Jim, could you maybe show also something that I had uploaded with the Clearinghouse site is, since this was a GUARD exercise, we were trying to focus on what their priority information requirements are. So,
all right. So that's at your welcome to the Clearinghouse?
Yes.
All right. So on a Google Earth, I do a Control F, and then I can type welcome, and it brings me right up here to welcome sign. Click on that. We see that there's the location. There's also these documents, and this one happens to be the PIR. So I'm going to copy this link because Google Earth actually broke the link. I'm going to copy the link and bring it into my Chrome. And here we now have the National Guard priority intelligence requirements. You want to say anything about these, Ann, or just take a look through them?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to show, and I'll show it when I take the screen back, I will show you this exact same information. So I uploaded this to the Clearinghouse incident in Spot On, so and sent out a notification to our Clearinghouse volunteers that this information was available and to take a look at it and to help them use it to help them self-direct to provide useful, actionable intelligence back to our GUARD partners. And our GUARD partners are using Google Earth. That's one of the tool of choice that they're using to view the incident. So they can see that the Clearinghouse is communicating this information out to our partners, and they can see it on their Google Earth, and we can see it at the same time in our Clearinghouse Spot On tool. So it's a great way to get plans. We have geotechnical data, things like borehole data in liquefaction zones that would be useful to partners. We can upload all of that information and make it available on the fly to our Clearinghouse field personnel to help give them better awareness of what they're seeing, what types of damage. So just a nice example of some of the information that we're able to share. It's not just you saw some layer information, but there's also pictures and videos and all kinds of other things that we can do. So I just wanted to show a little bit about that.
Oh, and there, we're back to that one.
Again, if anybody has any questions or, please let us know. So.
All right. Anything else you'd like me to show, Ann?
No, that's good. I just wanted to give everybody a chance to see that same information in Google Earth. Yeah, it's the exact same information that we're seeing.
All right. Then I'm going to pass the presentation baton to you.
Okay. Did it come back? Are you seeing my screen? So, 1 or 2. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, now we got it.
And you're seeing the right one?
Right. Natural gas transmission links or lines are the first thing.
So, and I can do the same thing. I can do I'm going to go ahead and actually, to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to change my profile, and I'm going to reduce my area of interest down to 50 miles to make it a little bit quicker and refreshing, and also because in a real event, there's no way I'm going to be able to get every incident within 200 miles of myself. So even 50 is pretty optimistic, but it helps manage the information. And I'm going to turn off the filter so we can see a little bit more information. We can start playing with this a little bit more. And I'm going to go to, and this tool as well, you can also do the Control F. And it should open a search window up here, and I'm going to put in, I know that in here this brings up my Welcome to the Clearinghouse site. This is the same incident you just saw in the Google Earth. And you can see those same observations, and here's the priority intelligence requirements. And I can click on that. It's the exact same information. So really handy to be able to get information. And you can see some of the people who've checked in with the Clearinghouse. So again, we can see who's around, who's participating. That's really helpful. We also, another one of the connected applications that can pull in and view and actually share out information as well is ArcGIS Online. And I am a geologist. My day job is doing seismic hazard zoning for California Geological Survey. I also do review of critical infrastructure or critical facility geologic hazards. So my GIS skills have gotten a little rusty, but even I have been able to use the ArcGIS Online. And one of the things that I did was I took again, I'll just bring this over here. So again, we have a Clearinghouse XchangeCore, and there's a feed that comes out of that, and that can be added to these different tools to pull in all of the information. So I entered information on the Clearinghouse Field Notes tool and on our spot-on response tool, but I want to view it on the ArcGIS Online tool. So I added the Clearinghouse XchangeCore feed to my ArcGIS Online feed as a GeoRSS. And then what I did is I re-symbolized it. So you can, so again, all of the information that's on the map here is the same information that's in my spot-on response. And what I did, you can bring in all of the, so I'm going to turn this off. You can bring in all of the incidents. So that's the really busy map with all those are the same points. And with ArcGIS Online, it's bringing it in as a GeoRSS feed, so you have limited ability to do some symbolization, but you can do some. And the key thing to remember with XchangeCore is it's providing the capability of sharing the information, but how the information is displayed on your application is a function of your application itself. So if the application has a limitation, XchangeCore can't fix that. So this happens to be a limitation with, it's not a limitation, I shouldn't say it that way. This is what ArcGIS Online is designed to do, and it's a very powerful tool. But we can bring in the Clearinghouse XchangeCore GeoRSS feed, so there's all the incidents, and then I can also bring in all the observations. And what I did is I re-symbolized those. And so here's our, let's zoom in, this is the Clearinghouse. And there's our Welcome to the Clearinghouse again. And then here's some of the observations. So those observations you can see are the same ones that that had information attached that I showed you. There's attachments there. The exact same information that you saw in the spot-on tool. And then additionally, I modified the XchangeCore feed, and I said, well, I just want to see, of all the Clearinghouse incidents, I just want to see the Riverside public water data. So I was able to just put in a specific, I modified the link so that it was for, excuse me, sorry, you can, what I did is I brought in the XchangeCore feed from the Clearinghouse, and I modified it so that I'm just bringing in the water data. And again, if you click on it, it's the exact same information, again, provided from Joe Crisolo, that is on my map. So it allows everyone to orchestrate the data in a way that's meaningful. So if you're a water agency, you don't necessarily want to see all the damaged historical structures. You're just interested in other critical types of infrastructure. So you have the ability to bring in the information from the Clearinghouse in a way that works best for you and work with it. Again, I'm going to pause for a minute. See if there's any questions or any other comments. Jim, if there's anything you want to add. Are there any hands up?
I don't see anybody with hands up. I've got a couple things that I can do whenever you want me to do them. I've got the WebEOC as well as
that'd be great.
A basic text view of everything that we have. So
okay, great. Why don't you go ahead and do that?
No, all right. All right, coming back to me. Show my screen. Shrink that down. You're seeing WebEOC or whatever this is, Google Earth now. And do you have a WebEOC up?
We do.
Good. Okay, WebEOC, a much more text-based system, let's call it. Here we see the same list of incidents, set of incidents that you've been seeing from Ann, that you've got all different things, some items that are open, some items that are closed. If I want to see this historic structure, there is some detail associated with that. And I can see that location of it. This is cultural value, unconfirmed reports of damage from the social media. And fundamentally takes, as Ann was saying, XchangeCore provides the data. Many different applications consume it, and they are able to use that data in whatever fashion they want to. In this case, it's the listings, the maintaining of the status, and the ability to take a look at the details that are associated with it. So that's a brief look at WebEOC. And then, yep.
Also, Jim, there's also an ability to share information from WebEOC to the Clearinghouse if somebody wants to connect their WebEOC as well, correct?
Yes, very good point. In fact, if I wanted to make a comment on this particular ground failure, I could go in there and do the update and actually make some additional information, add some additional details to it, and then that would go back in and percolate through the system and be added to everything that we had seen before. The other thing that I wanted to show you is a very simple way to get, and lots of people say, okay, great on the maps, but what I'd really like to see is a list of things. Well, first of all, this is simply using Internet Explorer and plugging in this XchangeCore GeoRSS feed of all of the incidents. And Internet Explorer does a nice job of filtering these by category. I have my Costco, there are 30 Costco's closed. I've got transportation incidents, there's one of those. There are 3 utility incidents, 29 Lowe's are closed. A very nice look at, there are all those unconfirmed earthquake damage that we saw a few of before. There are 114 of those that have come in from some source. And this does a very nice job. And then if you want to find them, you can spin down here and see everything from public water with lots of information about the size of the main and its ductile iron, and there are 60 services affected. There's some more in the city of Riverside. Lots of detail there, to ones that may have just come in from a Lowe's that simply says, hey, I'm closed right now and not able to support any of your needs. There's Costco's also just reporting that they're closed. And here's the Clearinghouse field notes that we looked at. Kate from USGS has reported in on using field notes that we've got this slip that has taken place there. And Joe out of the California Environmental Protection Agency has issued a couple of spot reports, those coming from Spot On Response. So literally right on this page, you see the Clearinghouse field notes from the USGS spot report out of the Spot On Response mobile app, and then your NASA JPL damage estimates. So we're seeing 3, 4 of the liquefaction come out of the U.S. or the California Geological Survey. So we've got 5 different applications and sources of information that are drawn together on this one little page, just scrolling down. And there's the hazard data distribution service that we were talking about earlier with Brenda. So that's a look at a couple of others, more text-based applications than the mapping ones. And let me pass it back to you, Ann. I don't see any hands being raised, but let me pass it back to you.
Okay. And do we have Maggie Glasgow on the line? Is Maggie there? She may not. She's oops. Okay, so I'm going to show my, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, it has now appeared.
Okay, great. So let's see. I had something else I was going to mention. Let's see. My brain just went blank. Oh, I know what I want to do. So one of the things we've been talking about is, different ways you can filter information, different ways to organize it with the tools, but it's also important to, conceptually what we're trying to do for the Clearinghouse is improve our, just one moment. What we're trying to do is work with our partners to develop workflows and think about ways that we can translate or the scientific information into actionable intelligence for our response partners. Because as I mentioned, the Clearinghouse has a broad spectrum of partners who participate with us. So on the science and engineering side, we have organizations like the USGS, NASA, EERI, CGS, GEAR, Geotechnical Extreme Event Response. We have the scientists from the Southern California Earthquake Center that all provide really high-level, detailed technical information, but it's not necessarily actionable intelligence that's useful for the response community. So I'm a liquefaction owner. If I'm out mapping, I'm going to be making observations about the grain size distribution. What's the percentage of clay in the sand boil? What was the radius or diameter of the ejecta apron that came out of a liquefaction area? But that's, responder doesn't care about that. What they need to know is, well, can I drive a truck in there? Is that still a place where we had planned on opening a shelter? Can we still do that, or should we relocate it somewhere else? So one of the things that we've been doing is in Spot-On, you see these different categories or items of interest, and those are created through this green plus button. There's a drop-down of all the different types of incidents. And what we're trying to do is be able to categorize the information in a way that's more useful. So we really welcome any input anyone has in how to improve that capability. So, for instance, what we've done is one of my CGS colleagues, we came up with some categories for liquefaction, landslide, and surface fault rupture, which is kind of hard to categorize a surface fault rupture as red, yellow, or green. But what we came up with was green. It means that there was no rupture observed. Yellow means it's currently stable, so no afterslip observed, for instance. And then surface rupture red, meaning it's unsafe. There could be a large scarp there, or there could be a lot of afterslip occurring. But at least at a high level, on the emergency response side, they have something that that's a little bit more meaningful to them. So, and then we had some feedback from some of our water partners yesterday who were suggesting, right now we have incident, I think we just have water, either we have utility and we have, let's see, I think we had just a generic water, and they were suggesting, oh, break it down, add further detail, distinguish between drinking water versus wastewater. So we can customize this list any way we need to, but we really appreciate some feedback from you, our partners and collaborators, and the best way to go ahead and do that. I also, let's see, Maggie Glasgow, are you on the call? Oh, she's not on the call yet. She will be joining us shortly. She's with NASA, and she's going to talk a little bit about some of the products. Again, just show some of the products that they've been able to produce. Let's see. Let's turn up. That's the model produced by the Department of Public Health. And so I'll just turn on a few. So there's the NASA teams. The NASA provides just a real wealth of information. They have, this is an aftershock forecast showing where there's high potential for aftershock. So here's some critical infrastructure that happens to be in an area where there's a I-10 interchange. That happens to be in an area where there's liquefaction observed, and there's also a high potential that there's going to be a major an aftershock in that area. So if you're that infrastructure operator, that's an area where you know that potentially there's going to be some additional problems there. Whereas as you move farther out, okay, these are areas where the aftershocks are less likely to occur. Again, these are model predictions. They're not exact. But it gives everybody a better understanding of what's going on as the event progresses, and can make better decisions about how to respond and how to deploy limited resources and personnel. Let's see. Maggie, are you there? Let's see. I'm going to wait for her to let me know when she's there. Again, if anybody has any questions, really appreciate any feedback and any comments anyone has to add. Robert Sickler with the USGS. I'll just zoom in on a few people. Let's see who else is out there. I know there's Jim again. Let's see, who's up here? That's Robert. There we go. There's Phil Balin. And Phil, are you on the call? Jim, are they muted? Is there a way we can, do you know if they're available? Jim, are you on mute?
Of course.
Okay.
I don't see Phil on the call.
Okay. I know the Guard is doing a briefing at 10 a.m. and it's 10 right now. So my guess is some of our clearinghouse partners are going to.
Maggie may be on the call.
Let's see. Let me check in with her and see.
Yes, she has logged in. And
so she's muted. Okay, great.
And I just unmuted her.
Okay. Maggie?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we.
Okay, great.
So Maggie, what I've been doing is giving everybody a tour of the information. I've been showing the eDecider loss estimation modeling, the damage estimates. I also showed the modeling for mortality, so showing the estimates by, I guess it looks like by census tract. I've also been showing your aftershock forecast information, and Jim was showing how that information is also available because you're using XchangeCore and sharing your information out that way. It's also viewable in Google Earth and other applications as well. So we've been showing a lot of your information, and Dr. Maggie Glasgow is with the eDecider program, and she's also our point of contact for a number of NASA teams, and they have been just phenomenal partners for the Clearinghouse. And any other organization that's out there, if you're in another state, I highly encourage you to contact the NASA team because the information they're providing is not just for earthquakes, and they do work with other types of hazards as well. And they were an incredible partner for the Napa earthquake. Sunday morning, I was able to. We did our Clearinghouse call down. I notified NASA, major event, and we are interested in any support, any information they could provide. And within a few days, they were providing UAV SAR data that was critical for helping to understand the afterslip. So just phenomenal partners. So Maggie, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, sure. Should I share my screen? Or is there a way for me to share?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were on just the phone or if you actually had a.
Oh yeah, I actually put together a couple of slides. Let me get
great.
those up here.
Perfect.
Sure.
I'm making you the presenter, and we seem to see your stuff.
Okay, great. Let me see if I can actually find my my presentation here. Okay, here it is. All right. Okay, so can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was just going to quickly go through a couple of slides here of the NASA data products. We're working with Jim to get a few of the things ironed out, but they are spot on responsive, just not displaying quite correctly, and I think it's just a file format issue, but we'll get those ironed out, but they are on there, and I believe that if you click on the link, you can still download them from the actual link. So here's just some highlights of what we have to offer. I'll just minimize that. So in introduction, so we had some products to offer for you guys from NASA. We have the eDecider Rapid Assessment products, and also we teamed up with our JPL Airborne teams to provide some imagery, which was posted today. And I think that the KMZ files are rather large, so we have to work on getting those posted in a manner that will display. But we do have some example products from the 3 teams, UAV SAR, which is Uninhabited Aerial Vehicle Synthetic Aperture Radar, ASO, which is the Airborne Snow Observatory, and AVIRIS, which is the Airborne Visible Infrared Imaging Spectrometer, which has some hyperspectral images. Let's see here. Oops. So for the eDecider Rapid Assessment products, we have the strain magnitude and tilt maps, which gives you surface deformation. Rapid assessment products that gives you an idea of where the greatest ground deformation has occurred. Strain magnitude gives you the greatest ground deformation estimate, and then the tilt map gives you an idea of where the greatest vertical deformation has occurred, and the arrows give you the direction of where that vertical ground deformation has occurred. And this is helpful in telling you where your utilities that are underground might have been affected by vertical deformation. Also, your infrastructure that might have been affected by vertical ground deformation might have been disrupted. We also provided infrastructure at risk overlays. I think Ann might have been showing you some of these damage products already as a preview. So we gave 10-mile radius overlays of the infrastructure at risk in Cajon Pass, which were the highway and railway bridges. And we also provided preliminary model damage loss estimation by site in Cajon Pass with the highway and railway bridges. And this gives you red, yellow, and green tagged estimates of the damage and loss for those specific types of infrastructure with lat-long locations. And the purpose of these products is to help the responders go out and self-direct their response, Ann might have mentioned this, and do damage reports. And we'll be working with the Clearinghouse hopefully to help enhance this service to be able to take in field reports and update this database and serve out updated information once the field responders have gone out and done the damage reports, and be able to update this information once the field responders have gone out and done the reports on these sites. And then we also have, and I think Ann was just talking about this, the preliminary model damage loss estimation by the census tract. And this gives reports out on complete, extensive, moderate, and slight damage for those areas, and also life-threatening and mortally injured reports. And then we also have our aftershock likelihood forecast. This tells, it has a map of the area, and in warm or blue, or sorry, warm or cool colors, gives an estimation of the area where the likely aftershocks might occur, and this helps to tell you where likely damage might occur from earthquakes that will happen as a result of the aftershocks that will follow the main shock. And so this kind of tells you where more damage might occur as a result of this earthquake. So I just have a couple of screen captures here of these products. So here is the highway bridges damage loss overlay on top of that aftershock likelihood forecast in spot on. So you'll see here that we have the red and orange areas where there's showing where there might be a larger likelihood for these aftershocks, and then you already have a predicted red tagged high damage bridge, and so you might want to go in there and take a look at that because this is in an area where we think that there might likely be more damage, and so you might want to go out there and take a look at that. Also here is a screen cap of the extensive damage by census, and you can see here that there's also the highway bridges red and yellow tagged on that displayed in spot on. Since we couldn't see the tilt map actually in spot on, here it is displayed in Google Earth, and I've overlaid the infrastructure at risk layer there, and so these are the highway bridges, and you can see that there are some that are in an area where we predict that there's a large amount of vertical deformation, and that's the direction of the vertical deformation there with that yellow arrow, and you might want to go and take a look at those bridges that are in this area where we show that there might be a significant vertical deformation, just in case the bridge might have suffered some sort of damage from that. So the purpose of the eDecider products is to help with rapid assessment of damage. So I'm just going to move on here to the remote sensing imagery products that were posted this morning. So we have several products from the UAVSAR team. We have interferograms, which show the ground deformation, and we have some interferograms from Southern California in the Cone Pass, Castaic, and Salton Sea regions. And then for the Cascadia Rising exercise that we just had in June, Kathleen Jones provided some really nice overlays in Northern California and the Bay Area, so I wanted to include those because these were actual examples where she provided some overlays that identified possible liquefaction areas, landslide areas, and levees in danger. And so these were examples where we had the interferograms with damage likelihood areas, so that coupled both the remote sensing imagery with some areas where likely damage might have occurred. And these are sort of higher level products that could be generated to help identify where damage has occurred, and we can post these products fairly quickly to help responders identify where you might want to look in concert with the remote sensing images. So we provided both the remote sensing imagery and some examples of some overlays with some polygons showing these possible damage areas, including the liquefaction, levees at risk, and landslides, and also provided overlays of the California aqueduct canals, which also might have been at risk. And this is for the entire state, so that does extend down into Southern California in the areas that were in play for the exercise. The Airborne Snow Observatory provided some digital terrain and digital surface models in the Bishop, California region to show how we could use the LiDAR to show where buildings are identified by the high-resolution LiDAR, so that in the event of an earthquake, you can rapidly determine where the buildings are, and it could be used in assessing where damage might have occurred. And then we have some images from Avarice from the, you might recall that there was a large gas leak in the Aliso Canyon Porter Ranch area, and they took some methane measurements over that area, and so that instrument could be used for detecting gas leaks after an event. So here's just an example of that labeled interferogram from the Bay Area showing those areas of risk. So here we have on the left the interferogram in the Sacramento Delta with the possible liquefaction area labeled in green, and the levee at risk identified in red. And then the image on the right here, we have the Bay Area near the Hayward Fault, where it's been identified that there might be a possible landslide. So here is an example of how we can use this remote sensing imagery to identify possible areas of damage. So here's the example from Airborne Snow Observatory. This is in Bishop, California. They put together a digital terrain model. It's at 0.5 meter spatial resolution. And here you can see that the buildings are identified as well as the vegetation. So this could be used in the event of an emergency. This is the LiDAR. And this could be used to identify both intact and possibly damaged buildings. And lastly, we have the Avarice example, where this was flown over the Porter Ranch area, and it was used to identify where there was methane. So that ends my presentation. Here are the websites for the projects that were involved in the exercise. And I guess, Ann, if people have some questions, I can go ahead and take any questions.
Yes, we do have Robert Sickler has his hand raised, so I am going to unmute you now, Robert, if you'd like to ask your question. You're unmuted on this side. Are you muted on your side? Let's see. It tells me that the attendee is self-muted and can't be unmuted by an organizer.
Maybe put a message up that says, please unmute your phone, Robert. Let's use the chat. Let's see.
Okay, well, how about if I send it back to you, Ann? And
okay.
I'll see whether I can make contact with Robert.
Okay. All right, let me share my screen again.
All right, I just sent him an unmute request.
Let's see.
He says, this is Robert. He has a technical issue on his end.
Okay. All right. Is Tom McMillan from the Western Municipal Water District online? Tom, if you could raise your hand if you're available. I don't see him. All right. Well, as I say, the exercise is actually ongoing. So we have a tentative agenda of speakers that are engaged in actual exercise participation. So we may not have everybody be able to speak that we are hoping to, but another point I'd like to make, a couple of comments I'd like to make about the JPL, or excuse me, the NASA products are that, as I said, it's not, they do work not just for earthquakes, but other types of hazards as well. And then also going forward in, I believe it's 2020, NASA is going to be launching a new satellite called NISAR, and it's a joint mission with the Indian Space Organization and NASA, and it's going to have a number of Earth-observing sensors, and one of the mission requirements is to support disaster response. So the Clearinghouse and CGS have been working with the NASA team. We've provided some input on suggestions about use for that sensor information, not just for disasters, but also pre-event monitoring for a lot of the capabilities. You know, it's important to have pre-event imagery as well, and for and there are different reporting requirements for different types of disasters as well. So for a winter storm, or iceberg monitoring for shipping in the, in the northern, extreme north, northern Canada, that area, and northeastern Atlantic. There's a lot of shipping traffic that goes through there, and big icebergs obviously can be an issue. They still are. So there's some resources there. So vegetation monitoring, drought monitoring, all different types of information. So the NASA teams overall are a terrific resource for anybody. I would highly encourage you all to look into that. Something else I also want to point out is, so for the Clearinghouse, again, the California Earthquake Clearinghouse, our mission, our goal is to support the state of California response effort and to provide information about damaging earthquakes. But the capabilities with XchangeCore and what we're doing with Spot On are not restricted to just emergency response. The Clearinghouse is also part of a project that's being sponsored by the Department of Homeland Security. The project is being headed by the Bay Area Center for Regional Disaster Resilience. It's called the Toolbox Initiative, and it's focusing on understanding or supporting regional resilience by having a better understanding of dependencies and interdependencies of critical infrastructure, and in identifying gaps and defining mitigation, understanding system requirements. And we're working with different critical infrastructure operators, and the idea is to provide different tools to the infrastructure operators to help them understand how their infrastructure is tied into other types of infrastructure and also regional resilience. And so the XchangeCore information sharing capability is a big part of that. For just daily operations, one of our partners, Jim Walbrink with San Jose Water and CalWarn, has done a great job of educating those of us that are non-infrastructure folks about some of how their different organizations need to collaborate and communicate. So Jim has explained that for his water agency, he needs power to fuel his trucks, and he needs energy. He needs electricity to run generators. So he has to have pumps running to supply water to hospitals that are going to need to function before, during, and after a major event. He needs communication. So he's been taking the lead on leveraging some of these capabilities in support of their daily operations. So again, the Clearinghouse, we're a forum for sharing information, and the Earthquake Clearinghouse is focused on earthquakes, but everything that we do, again, trying to be as efficient and minimize duplication of effort, we want to make sure that everything that we're doing is not just something that you can only use for an earthquake once, every several years when there's a major earthquake, but it's a capability that is available to you for your daily operations. And the idea is we want people to use it and be familiar with it, so that they're, so that when the event happens, it's easy to do and comfortable, and we've figured out best practices. Again, that's something that I touched on earlier, that we are really interested in getting input from our partners to help us develop those best practices and workflows, because the Clearinghouse, as I said, never directs anybody's actions. The Clearinghouse does not actually produce anything specific. We don't produce, we do briefings, and we'll produce information about the earthquake impacts, but it's up to our partners who are the subject matter experts. They're the leads. So we work with Cal EPA and California Department of Public Health. They are the ones that do the plume modeling. The Clearinghouse is a place for them to be able to share that information to the larger community, but we would never insert ourselves into the conversation about how that model is developed. That's not our role. That's not our responsibility, and we don't want to interfere with that process. The Clearinghouse is our role is to provide information and support. We're not a first responder. We're not an emergency responder. So again, if anybody has any input and insights into how, what those best practices should be, we have a information sharing work group that's part of this DHS project, and we again really welcome participation and input from our partners. Let's see.
And Robert has raised his hand again. Let's see whether he's
okay.
there. Robert, are you available? It says he's not muted.
Okay.
All right, then. Apologize for interrupting.
Okay. Let's see. Maria Solis, so it's a little bit early for her. I think she said she'd be available around 10:30, 10:45. And any of our other clearinghouse partners, that if you're on the call, please do speak up. We'd love to hear from you as well. I'm just giving you a tour of, what I've seen some of our partners do for the exercise. We had a clearinghouse briefing call yesterday, but we'd love to hear anybody's input and questions. Jim, is there anything else that you want to go ahead and highlight?
No, at this point, I think you've done a very nice job of pulling all the pieces together.
Okay. Well, let's see. We have the call from 9 to noon, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe I should just kind of go back over some of the same highlights. We're just kind of waiting for some of our other partners to tune in.
Yeah. Oh, Robert has an unanswered question. Let me click and see what that means. No. Robert, if you can hear me, why don't you go onto the chat and send your question that way, since we don't seem to be able to get you to talk and be able to hear you. There we are. You've got them right out there.
Yeah. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a clearinghouse announcement. Robert Sickler, please call in. Please function on the webinar, as we are not able to hear you. This is an information. So this is one of the clearinghouse capabilities with our Spot On tool that we can message. So let's see if he's out there and he sees this. Let's see, save changes, and hopefully I have my pop-ups. Let's see, let me make sure I've got my pop-ups enabled here with.
Robert, I've changed your status. Can you talk now? Nope, still not getting through.
Got my alerts turned on. There it is, and there is, everybody can see. I've messaged Robert. Hi, Robert, please use the chat function. So, hopefully he'll be able to see that note, and we'll get the message to him that way. That's something else that this is really valuable that the Spot On team has provided for us, is the ability to message. So I've sent out a number of announcements throughout the exercise. I can do that. We have there's an information, a warning, alert, or recovery. Again, we can customize these categories, but when there's a chlorine release or a safety issue, I can send that message out, and everybody who's logged in through the Clearinghouse Spot On tool will get that information on their mobile app, or if they're using the web version, they'll be able to see that. So it's a great communication tool. Okay, so let's see. I'll be honest, stalling for time here because we have other parts that are engaged in the exercise and are not able to join in right now. So again, if you have any
Robert.
questions.
Aha, finally.
We got it.
Yay. Okay.
You have the floor.
Sorry, it's a general question. I'm trying different browsers and sort of different ways in to look at things. I was wondering, is there a way we get a feedback on which, people are using Mac, PC, which browsers seem to work best? I'm seeming to have, I've tried my Mac in Firefox, and I'm having some difficulty with like refresh rates, and my Google Earth is crashing a bunch. I was kind of wondering a little bit of input on what folks seem to think works best if they've tried a bunch of different,
Across all the platforms, Chrome seems to work best, Firefox next, and then Safari after that, I would say. The fact that your Google Earth is crashing, that's odd, because that doesn't run through a browser. That's operating
right.
Down.
Well, I think part of it also has to be, I have to be careful who's on the line. My colleagues are wonderful firewall security. We're security first, and data transmission second. And that's
a really good point for everybody, though. That it's important. That's one of the reasons we do these exercises, is for people to become familiar with their devices and the settings. One of the things that I did is I was running, on my personal laptop, when I use a spot-on tool in my browser, I was seeing all the notices, but when I came to work, and I was thinking like, why am I not seeing that? And it dawned on me, I need to set my preferences in the browser, in my Firefox and Chrome browser on my PC at work, which is different at home. So a lot of those things, and then yes, again, of course, security issues, that's something else that we all have to deal with. So it's a great reminder. It's something that we all deal with, and it's just a fact of modern life. But it's important to understand those, how your device works, and the tool is available either as a web browser version, or you can download it on a mobile device as well. So there's you can try it on a mobile device as well. And again, that's going to depend on also. I have a work Verizon, and I have my own personal phone, which is AT&T. They're both iPhone 5s. They have the same operating system, but my Verizon phone tends to get much more limited reception. And the tools do have offline capability too. That's another really important point to make. In the exercise, we've got full connectivity, but I've taken these tools out and used them in remote areas, and it will switch into offline mode. It'll cache the information and then upload that once you have connectivity. So for instance, and also all of the connected applications. So I know the USGS Field Notes tool, which is an HTML-based tool, and it's a really great resource for the science and engineering community to add technical information. That also has an offline mode, and so when it comes back online, because it's one of our connected XchangeCore applications, it will then refresh and pull that information in as well. So we definitely, we know that that's a concern that many people have, and we're working to make sure that we are addressing that as well. So great comment.
Thanks.
Thanks, Robert. Okay. Any other? Are any of our other clearinghouse partners on the call available? I know that there's a guard briefing that's going on, so I think a lot of our partners are.
Kate has raised her hand, and I just unmuted you. Kate, can you speak to us?
Sure, this is Kate Sharp from the U.S. Geological Survey.
Oh, great.
Hi. I just, since you have a moment, I could give a little summary of the overflight, if that's of use.
Sure, please do.
All right, so at 11 o'clock, Brian Olson of CGS and Joseph Crisologo of Cal EPA and myself met with Chief Brandon Lynch at the Air National Guard Center at Los Alamitos, and it was sort of interesting because we had the time and the foreknowledge to develop a little bit more detailed flight plan than would happen in the true event, but out of that came some useful pointers on communication that it, for the pilots, they want to know where to go, but of course we don't know where we're going to go ahead of time, and so that kind of communication challenge will be heightened in that event, in a real event. So having an iPad or something with you that can help you communicate in lat long, or by place name to some degree, but for us mostly it's lat long, where you want to go, is very useful. And so we had some discussions about the game plan for the day. We decided to just do one long flight, and we were up in a Black Hawk RUA-60 and spent 4 or so hours up there. We did refuel at one point and were able to track it. I know I used I used the USGS Field Notes app, which was, we scrambled and made it work after the new operating system came out for iPhones recently. I admit I can't find those when I go to the Clearinghouse webpage here. I don't know how to do that. So I'll figure that out. I hear that they're loaded, but I don't see them anywhere. I don't know.
Okay.
I just put a few on there as we were going along, and then we did take photos the whole time. I think one thing that would be valuable that I learned in this was getting actually live video during the flight. You know, a down-looking camera or a side-looking camera would be really valuable for collecting data on, you know, just the scale of the rupture, and it might be useful for after-slip calculations later, because you could go to a place and say, you know, within hours after the rupture, if you're still waiting for the satellites to come over, you have a really focused, not on the ground, but say 500 feet above the ground view of what the slip was. So according to the Air National Guard, if they're the people that actually conduct the overflight, Chief Lynch communicated to me that there were just a few of their helicopters that have video capabilities. So it might be something that in the future we try to request those first or something like that, just to enable the video to be taken. So it was a successful trip, and I think we all learned a lot. That's sort of the broad overview.
Oh, that's great. So for those of you who are, just to get everybody up to speed, the Clearinghouse, we have a number of different tasks that we try to accomplish in our response, and we set up a physical Clearinghouse location. Again, our goal is to be a forum for sharing information about the impacts of the earthquake, and in order to do that, we use several different means, and the overflights are really, really important for that. So Kate Scherer is a geologist with the USGS, and she was doing, there were 2 different Clearinghouse overflight missions. One is to immediately or as soon as possible after the earthquake to get up in the plane and identify the where the epicenter is, the epicentral region, identify where there is fault rupture and establish where the endpoints of the rupture are, and then start looking at where the critical infrastructure crosses the fault. So Kate was up providing that insight with the Guard. And then we had a second mission with a geologist and an engineer. And Joe Crisolo, who stepped up, big shout out to him too. This really truly embodies the spirit of the Clearinghouse. We had the idea is to have both an engineer and a geologist on the flight, because they each have a different perspective on what's happening. The geologist can talk about how the ground is responding, and the engineer can look at the effects on the built environment. So it's really great to have a team and to do some more detailed mapping along the fault with critical infrastructure. We had identified Professor Tara Hutchinson from UC San Diego. She was ready to go, and unfortunately caught the flu. It's a real-world situation, and Joe with the water board happened to be at our physical Clearinghouse location. He was an engineer, and he stepped up and said, you know, I could go. And so it truly, truly exemplifies what the Clearinghouse is all about. People self-directed, you know, Joe made the decision, you know, he would be able to step up. We didn't tell him to do it. That was something that he knew he could contribute, and so we were able to get him up on the flight and take advantage of it. So it was great. And then again, the communication, Kate, that you described between the teams and the air crew. And I also want to give a big shout out to the National Guard and our partners with the Cal OES Air Coordination Group, because in California, all overflights after all airspace is going to be controlled following a major disaster, and that includes drone use. So our partners with the Air Coordination Group and the National Guard they really value the importance of the science and engineering missions and have worked with us to support those missions. So, Kate, thank you very much for all of your help in working with them, and look forward to getting your comments for the after-action report, too.
Sure, thanks for making it happen.
All right. So, thank you very much.
Phil Balin's here.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just, this is Phil Balin up at the National Guard headquarters, and all I wanted to mention to you was that this morning the Amtrak Paul Holt and, or actually I guess it's Stacy Weller and then Union Pacific, Paul Holt were both here in the planning intelligence portion of National Guard where we're pulling together data, and we showed and explained to them how we'd like to provide information and that they're one of the clients, and that they could be able to see the damage information, and then we asked the kind of information that we'd be interested in hearing back from them, and that we'd like to follow up this exercise with a meeting between the National Guard and the utilities in general, but certainly the, the rails. So that went really well. Maria Solis came here, and the three of them later took off to Beale, I think, to visit that site.
And Phil, do you have time to talk a little bit more about what you've been doing with the Guard all week in terms of working with the Clearinghouse and the different types of information?
Sure. So I came up to the Guard to learn from them their process flow of how information comes in, and then to add the Earthquakes Clearinghouse flow of information. So basically the domestic and the military side being able to see each other's information as a goal, and to make that information a sort of an integrated package, if you will, into their decision-making tools. So they used a combination of their tools, DART and APAN, and we also were using with them the XchangeCore information through spot-on response. They're very familiar with Google Earth, and so we had the direct feeds of information coming from XchangeCore, coming through XchangeCore into their Google Earth environment. And we've been making various products to support their responses, combining the hazardous material plumes that CDB, California Department of Public Health, Kevin Chow, he was really great at providing us some plume information that we were able to overlay. They could see here's hazmat plume information in context to their forces that they were able to do it. So through the day, through the couple days, and actually even in training, we've been practicing on seeing what we can and can't do, and we will end up with a large number of observations of how we could improve data flow between the two sides, the National Guard and the Clearinghouse and all its partners.
That's terrific, and that again, and Phil is taking the lead for us on the information coordination. As I said, this is it's a big task, and there are different pieces of it. There's a ConOps that we need to develop. As Phil is mentioning, what are the best practices, and as I talked about earlier, how to categorize the information, how to organize our Clearinghouse personnel to provide actionable intelligence, even in terms of when you create an incident and spot on, what kind of information should you provide? How should you phrase that? Scientists and engineers, we're not emergency responders. We don't get a lot of practice with that. So Phil has been taking the lead on trying to really help bridge that gap, working with, helping us with a lot of outreach with our different partners, like the Guard, to understand what their information requirements are, what their essential elements of information are, how do they use the data, how do they work with it, what formats do they need, and then on the technical side, making sure that we have the ability to get that information to them. And the goal is to make the data useful so that people like Phil, who's a very skilled GIS analyst professional, he can take that the various types of information and put together custom decision support products. So looking at the liquefaction zone information and then layering on top of that, vulnerable population data or healthcare facility information, census tract information, maybe some aftershock information, and seeing how their how the people that live there are being affected, and then he fills with the city of Walnut Creek, the city of Walnut Creek and the police and fire and emergency responders, they would be able to see how this looks in their, to support their response. So the idea is to give everybody the ability to use the information in the way that's most effective for them, and then also to be able to, again, share that back out to the larger community. So any other thoughts or comments you have to add on that, Phil?
No, just that the Guard has been great in providing availability to their imagery and their workflows, and get to sit in on their briefings so that you can see, which is really important for people that are pulling together information, because they have to give it to decision makers who have a real need for a simplified but detailed view of what does it mean to them, how are they going to, they have to decide how to deploy their resources, and over time they want to look at what's happening now and then look at it in the future. And so, as a combined effort, I think that's valuable for all of us to figure out how to stage information and put it together and train so that when an incident does occur, we have a lot of this information set up ahead of time, even to the permission slips from the utilities, so that they can more efficiently be able to get and provide them imagery back for their own purposes, because they are the clients for the National Guard. There's a lot of different clients that would be requesting information about the incidents going on. But Ann, thanks very much. I actually need to get back in and create some more of those products. So again, I'll touch bases tomorrow, but thank you very much.
Okay, no, thanks, Bill. Again, appreciate that. Go ahead. So as I said, the exercise is ongoing, so we appreciate everybody taking a little break from the action and being able to share what they're doing. Tom McMillan from Western Municipal Water District, are you on the call at all? Are you available? I don't hear. He might be engaged as well. And Maria, yes.
Yeah. It's Jim. Let me just jump in for a minute here, because Kate had said she was looking for some of her field notes that she had just entered, and just wanted to do a real-time validation here. I'm going to make myself the presenter, and Kate, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I actually did figure out how to do it in the filter, but it took me a minute.
Okay. That was what I was just going to demonstrate to everyone by turning the filter on and editing. And I've added a field notes down there. And when I did that, it took all those hundreds of items of interest that are down there and turned them into these specific ones that came from the Clearinghouse field notes tools. We got a building and a few fault ruptures, and see one here from you, a couple yesterday. This one was today. Was this the one you were flying around on? Which would have located it out here.
They should be from yesterday.
Oh, yesterday? Oh, okay. All right. Then
But that looks like it is where I was, so I don't know. But yeah, I've made a note at near Devil's Gate and on an irrigation canal. So a couple of them, I do see them on there now, like that in the lower right yellow.
Yeah, let me just jump out to one more here. And here, this looks like one's down by near Temecula.
Yes.
Yes, the Vail Lake Dam was identified as okay. So that's another nice example of USGS software shared through XchangeCore, available in spot-on response, and heck, it ought to be here in, let's try, what was that? Field notes? Yes. Or filed notes. So these, Google's going to be a little bit more difficult to figure out because it's not giving us any of the more detailed information as we scroll down through them. Yeah, so a little more rummaging around there to figure out where they were inside of Google Earth, but they have made it into there. And were I desperate for information, I would poke around and look at each one of those individually. Although we do know that you've got the Temecula one down here, which is, where's Temecula? I can actually do that. And that's going to zoom me into this area, which may mean we've got a Costco.
Hot watch infrastructure, is that it? No.
No, I don't think so. Oh well, not a perfect example. It was near Temecula. Yeah.
Field notes observations in there before, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we appreciate, that's the goal though, is to be able to let our different partners use what works best for them, because a geologist is going to be looking at things differently than an engineer, than somebody at Lowe's, than somebody with City of Riverside. So, but all that information is not tied by, it's not tied to any specific application or format. So we want to make sure that we can get that information to as many partners as possible to be able to work with it. I was hoping Phil could talk a little bit more about some of the things he was doing with the Guard, but I know he's been really busy working with them, and so I would encourage everybody, we will be producing an after-action report for this exercise. Probably take us a couple weeks at least to compile everything, but we will have examples of a lot of the things that we're talking about today, and we'll have some actual products. I'm going to finish my ArcGIS Online map. I'm going to add some more different specific feeds to it. I'm going to add some of the specific damage type data, and so we'll be posting that. And we want to make sure we call out all the different partners that are contributing information too. That's something else that's really important to us, is to give credit to all the different organizations that are providing that information. It's not about the Clearinghouse, it's about all of the different partners that are participating. So we'll let everybody know when that after-action report comes out, and we will also archive this data. I know what we can talk about too. Another capability that a couple new things that we've introduced over the last year with our spot-on tool, we have created what we're calling our test drive site. So as Robert mentioned, he was trying to figure out which browser to use and which settings, and the best way to do that is to practice with the tool. And so what we wanted to do is make some of the data from past exercises available to all of you so that you can practice with it. And that's our test drive site, and we have some instructions that we'll post on the Clearinghouse website on how to do that. And all of the types of information that you see, all the incident data from our capstone exercise last year, 2015, is out there and you can play with. And we will do the same thing with this data. I hope be able to, I know we will archive it, and we will try to make sure that we can make that available to the test drive site. I also do want to show, again, another way to make sense of all this information. I'm going to show our knowledge map. This is another big improvement that we've added since the last exercise over the last couple of years. I'm going to expand my profile, my area of interest again, out to 200. It's going to take them, and because there's a lot of incidents, it's going to take a second to refresh. But we have one of the things that we've gotten a lot of feedback on is, well, gosh, there's all these pins on the map. How do I know which one to go to? And well, they're all on there's a list at the bottom, and again, you can sort that by distance or by alphabetical. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, it'll show you if there's an observation, which means somebody's taken a look at it or provided information, if there's media attached to it. So We've got NASA damage estimates. We've got this Cal ISO station. I think this is the one that I visited. Let's see, equipment damage. Let's see what this is. Oh, okay, there's a photo of equipment damage. So, you can scroll down that list and you can see where somebody's provided an observation, but that can be very tedious.
And you may not be sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, so let me do this again. Share monitor 2. Okay. Let me know when you can see it.
Got it. So you can
All
start.
right, great.
You can start from the beginning.
Okay. And again, if any of our Clearinghouse partners are on the call and have time to speak up, please do so. I know everybody's busy with the exercise, and you might have a few minutes here and there. So if you're on the call and you have an opportunity, time to say a little bit about what you're doing, I will yield the floor to you willingly. So anyway, I'm just talking about our different ways that we can slice and dice the data, make it more useful. Again, when you're looking at the map, and again, in a major event, there's going to be lots of information from all different sources. And we will have different icons to represent different types of damage. We've been making some updates, so that got a little bit out of sync. So this will, ordinarily we would, for a landslide, you would see a little landslide icon. For liquefaction, there's a liquefaction icon. But even with different types of icons, it's still a lot of information to digest visually and to try to make sense of. So again, each one of these items on the map, you can click on it and it tells you about it, and then you can click on the details and directions. It'll take you to that item on the list. And if you're trying to figure out, so who's this? So there's Rod Wheeler from Cal ISO, and he's trying to figure out, well, there's all these incidents around me. Which one should I go to? And there is the list. You can, again, restrict your area of interest to just show what's immediately around you, so that would be helpful. But in a big event, there's still going to be lots of things around you. So you can look at the list and try to see where there's an observation and where somebody has provided media. So again, this Cal ISO location, somebody's provided an observation, and there's a photo there, so that's helpful. But again, it can be a little bit tedious to have to scroll through that list. So what we wanted to do is have a way of providing some analysis about what you're seeing, again, to help you make sense of it and deploy yourself more more effectively. So what we've created, we're calling it a knowledge map. If you have a better name for it, we're open to it. But the idea is to look at all of these pins on the map and look at the ones, try to represent where people have gone and where information has been provided. And so I'm going to turn this on. Again, it's going to just turn that on. There we go. Oops. On. There we go. Okay. This is going to take a second to refresh. Okay, so it's kind of interesting what you see. Recall there were a bunch of pins on the map. Well, now with the knowledge map on, the pins have disappeared, but what you see are these little auras of brightness, and those are areas where we have knowledge. There's some information. So, and again, with this big event, we have a lot of issues and not a lot of people. So if you're out there, so Frank Jordan, he can look around and see, okay, there are some areas around where people have already been, but in the immediate area that he's at, he's surrounded by darkness. So he should be exploring the area around. Okay, now you can see there's these pockets around him where there's some brightness, which means that somebody has provided information. Over here we have a slightly brighter aura that means that a little bit more information has been provided. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to pan over a little bit so we can see this. And I'm going to toggle this on and off. So if you keep an eye on it, so again, there are all the pins. Those are all places where there's a report of damage, but not all of those are areas where we have information. So when you turn on the knowledge map, it's showing you, let's see, you turn it back on. There we go. The pins disappear, and it shows you which ones are areas where there are pins where information has been provided. So there are some pins here, and somebody's probably provided a photo. or some sort of information. And then you also see these lines. These are tracks. These are where people have been traveling around, and you can see somebody's been traveling, set their location from the east. That's probably Jim. Somebody's been looking over what's happening in China. So, and it's a way of, again, trying to see where has somebody already been. So that if somebody's already traveled that route, then I should be going somewhere else. And the knowledge map has some different settings, has some different options. And the way we set this up, there's a hierarchy to the way the information is organized. These the list, at the top level, they're called items of interest. That's where we know something has happened. And, and then the next level would be if somebody has provided an actual observation about that event, and then, or if somebody has just driven by. So if you just have an item of a report, say an unconfirmed report from social media that there is a damaged structure, well, it tells you something that maybe there's something there, but we want to confirm that. So maybe I'm driving out to another location and I happen to, my track, I happen to drive by that spot. I didn't actually stop to report anything, but I did see it. So at least everybody knows, well, okay, Anne's at least been by there, so maybe she can just say, what did you see out the window? So that's still better than nothing. So we weighted that a little bit higher than nothing at all. But if somebody has actually stopped and provided a description, they've actually taken the time to go to the location and actually provide some observations, whether it's just a text description or maybe they've even taken a photo or they've taken some measurements, that gets weighted a lot more heavily because that's real information that can be used, and that gives everybody a sense of where do we have information and where do we still need information. So the idea would be, move away from the light and create some light around you. So that's just another little capability. That's a brand new capability that we.
And let me ask you to zoom in much farther, because the way this is set up for more local operation. So you're going to want to actually, so yeah, here we go. Down there you go. The way that, if you would bring up your panel again, that your observation or whatever, that options panel, yeah. The radius of 8 represents for either the item of interest or the observation of interest about 250 yards in either direction. That was where in establishing this we said, hey, if I'm standing here, I should be able to represent a couple hundred yards around me. So if you look at these, and that's designed much more for a view in a city or in an area where you're observing. If we were going to look at it on a more regional level, I would change that to 80, which is going to give me 2,500 meters and half a mile view, and it will make all the circles bigger, and as a result, it will allow you to, at a higher level, be able to see these items. But the goal really is to be able to use those in there. Now you see that we can, we'll say, okay, we have lots of things around there, and I can now see that if I am providing a overall Southern California response, I'm going to say you don't need to go into the Cajon Pass area, but you probably ought to, I can't read what your screen says, but you probably ought to go down into Santa Ana just to see whether there's anything there. So perhaps the combination of the shake map, which says this is what might, or the shaking we're forecasting to take place, with the observations created as part of the knowledge map, begin to say, gee, I've got a red spot there that doesn't have any white areas where we haven't made observations. Maybe somebody ought to go check there. So you need to play, as you're playing with the knowledge map, need to play with those settings to determine how you want to do it. The 8 that it comes with as a default is for saying, I'm right here and 6 blocks away it's dark, I probably ought to go look around there. At this level, at the 80, that's saying, okay, across the region, I ought to be sending some folks out into pick a city around there that's not getting much coverage right now.
Great. And again, this is another one of the capabilities that we are trying to, we're developing a workflow that's brand new. So we'd really like to get feedback on how useful is it. You know, do you have suggestions for what you think the presets should be, you know, or other ways that it can be used. That's what the exercise is for. So please don't hesitate to contact us with your feedback on that. And then we also have
actually, and if I could just interrupt, I just had a thought on the overflights. I'm looking at this picture here, and this could be a tool for overflights because I sure ought to be sending somebody where it's not green because I don't care, but also where it's not white. That might be my certainly not my first, but my next overflight there. So just throw that in there.
Oh, no,
you can.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. That's what we're trying to do is figure out use cases. So that would be that's another way to use it. It's brand new. So what we're trying to do is build our capabilities. We want to be able to, first of all, report in on what we see, and then not just do that, but we want to be able to orchestrate that data and make it meaningful and useful to the people that need it most. So, and then
actually, one other thing on the tracks that you remind me of. Very few, if anybody, has been actually out in the field. The tracks are based on, and it's when you're using the mobile app is really where the tracking comes in. Tracks are based on every 30 seconds where you are, a live GPS coordinate. All the big line tracks here you see are people who have done their set location. Like when I came in from California or from Washington, it gave me a line all the way to Washington. But when you actually are out in the field using the app, every 30 seconds you're getting a track. So as you walk from one block to the next, you're building up a track, which is building up scores for that area that get calculated in this reverse heat map back to being white spaces. So if I walk down one street, that's going to be one thing. If I would walk around the entire block and it takes me 4 minutes to walk around the block and I've got points along the way, you're going to have an intenser look at that area, which represents the fact that you have been there longer and you have walked through more areas. If you stay still, it doesn't do that. It understands that you're standing still and you're not gaining additional knowledge by standing still that would be represented in this map. But walking around and up and down a street gives you a very good concentration of this knowledge points that then allow you to be represented on the map like this.
Great. Yeah, and again, and all of this is has been developed because of the feedback we've gotten from real earthquakes and all the exercises we've been doing over the last several years. So, again, we just want everybody to know your feedback really does matter. This was a suggestion that came from one of our partners with the Seismic Safety Commission. Said, hey, well, it would be great if you could do some sort of heat map. And it took us a while to find the funding to be able to do this because, as I say, the Clearinghouse does not have a dedicated source of funding. But we were lucky to be able to get a little bit and to be able to put that idea in motion. And this is where we're at right now. So we're hoping to continue to build on these capabilities. And certainly, if you have any feedback, if you have any issues, let us know because if there's any bugs, we want to debug things. But this is providing, again, more understanding of what's going on. It's not about just getting the information. It's about making sure that it's useful information. So really appreciate that.
Yeah. And you were going to show the current activity? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to do that. So then the other capability we have is something called the current activity map. And that work there. Maybe that was about, maybe I'm, my machine is pre-maxed out.
No, you got a lot of points in there.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
This is not just showing things. This is
Calculate.
doing
And
calculations.
that's a great,
Yeah.
I want to emphasize that's a really important point for everybody, that, and that's another reason that you should be managing your screen content if you can. Limit what you're showing on your screen, your area of interest, or filter, because it's going to take what it's going to do is it's going to have to refresh on all of those points that you're showing. So if you limit that, it'll make the screen refresh a little bit faster. But if you do want to show a large area, be patient. It's just going to take a little while to go through. So this is the other way of looking at it. This is showing the activity map. And what we did was we made it red, blue, so that it wouldn't. So if we wanted to overlay, other types of data, it would be a little bit easier to understand. But so again, you can see, red meaning there's a lot of activity, and then the warmer colors is the most activity, and then the cooler colors as there's less information. And again, those can all be. Whoops. You can.
And you can put the icons back on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go back over there to there, and now turn the items of interest icon where your pointer is right there. Just turn it back on.
Okay, so there
They
you
automatically go off because that's not what the heat maps represents, but you can play with the two of them together.
Oh, fantastic! So I just learned something myself. So you can see, that you can see those are areas where there is, information has been provided. So it'll help you self-direct. That's what, again, our clearinghouse partners are. We don't tell them what to do. We don't direct them. So, but we want to be able to have some tools that they can use on their own. So, part of clearinghouse participation is how well you can read and follow directions. So, we've got some directions out there. We're going to be revising our user guides for all these different capabilities as well. These are debuting for this exercise. So, there we go. So I'm going to go back, and looks like my browser is frozen. So Jim, why don't you go ahead and take over, and I'm going to relaunch my browser because I think my browser's out here.
It may just be taking a minute. That's just from if you're going to be moving around a lot, you might want to turn the tracks off, because again, each one of those points at 30 seconds, every one of which is being, there you go. Every one of which is being calculated as part of it is going to be what you're doing. So
it's exactly the lesson there. So I'm going to refresh my browser.
all right, so I have only the clearinghouse field notes there, so I'm going to turn my filters off. And a couple of points we can show here. You've got all these clusters, which are convenient, but sometimes I don't want the clusters. Down here there's called the icon grouping. If I take that from a 20 and I'll even make it a -1, that's going to give me all of those icons. So how you visualize depends on what you want to see. We have, by the way, you see lots of these Costco Lowe's were two groups that provided some stimulus material here. And we did that through a project called SABRE. And I'm just going to pull that up. sabrespace.org. If you've been on calls previously, you're familiar with this, but if not, it's the private sector exchange for reporting of business status, and the lots of different members here. We've got several the biggest companies in the country from the commercial sector, a growing group of people in the utility sector, and then BEOC and clearinghouses on the government side, representatives there. And all a if we were to want to have San Jose Water to make some contribution to us, simply click on that. Everybody needs a login to be able to have access to provide information to the core so we know where they come in. And then I would simply choose a file at this point. I won't bother going through that process. And from that point on, that information gets added in. As a private sector company updates their information, they're simply grabbing a spreadsheet, updating from closed to open, or in the case of the public utilities, the water utilities in particular, they have leak status, whether it's a complete shutoff or whether there's a leak or whether it's being repaired, all those different status information. And that ends up going into XchangeCore, which then publishes it out. So if I have a Lowe's here, I'm going to see a Lowe's of Rancho Santa Margarita, and they have a current status of closed. Where were you? Anybody recall where the water? Actually, I can make that happen. I'm going to come in here. We'll create a filter, and I'm going to call water. Add that one in. And we have every reference to water then. Oh, look at that. We had some lifelines that made note that they were water coming out of the Field Notes application. We got some wastewater treatments and then all the public waters supplies in the city of Cerritos. And if I take a look at that, we'll see the kind of data that's being provided there. All the information about the provider of the information, the leak address on the cross street is at 166 and Marquardt Avenue. It's an 8-inch cast iron pipe, and it's affected 15,333, and it is severely damaged. The well is no longer aligned. Now that's pretty useful information. Coming from the public utility, it would allow, they know what it is that they're dealing with, but that also provides for the scientists and engineers a opportunity to say, gee, something must have moved in that area, and provide that confluence of knowledge together. So wanted to point those out to you, and each of those has been added as though it were a labeled those as spot reports coming in from the public water supply. Let's see, what else?
And Jim, there's also a Sabre XchangeCore feed that was added to your Google Earth as well?
Yes, we can bring that up. I can come in here and actually where did that one go? Let's turn off the all incidents and come in here and do Sabre only, and it's going to bring up that's right. I cheated. I changed my Sabre to bring up all the incidents. So you're going to see some additional information there. But in fact, all the same Lowe's and folks like that are there with the Lowe's information, and those people that we had
Not really, because if that's what somebody needs to do to be able to see theirs, they can create that link to bring in just what they need.
Yep, that's right. And if let me see what I do have here. Might be able to illustrate that. Okay, I've got Costco. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on Costco, and I then have to do a separate authentication, huh? That's interesting. Okay, well that's positive. I won't do that because I don't have that right in front of me, but that is an example that if I didn't have that the ultimate owner of the data controls. So I didn't have the username and password to go in and look at that Costco's information at that point. It asked me for it, wouldn't allow me in without it. So I ended up being prompted for that and frankly was not able to remember it, so moved right on.
But that's also something else that we're, one of the reasons that our capabilities, it's another reason why the Clearinghouse is leveraging XchangeCore for our, for the Clearinghouse and for our Toolbox initiative sponsored by DHS, is that a lot of the, excuse me, just one second. For the utilities and critical infrastructure operators, they have information that some of it they can only share amongst other utility operators or even within their own sector, so maybe only with other water agencies. So the Clearinghouse, we have no restrictions on any of the information that we're collecting in terms of science and engineering information. So we share everything out to everybody. We want to make it available to everybody. But we understand that not all of our partners have that ability. Some of the things that they're doing are sensitive, and they need to be able to share that discreetly. So the capability with XchangeCore and why we're leveraging it for the DHS Critical Infrastructure Toolbox project is that it will allow our different partners to just share out what they choose to share. They would be able to do that. So it gives, again, the goal of the Clearinghouse is to provide access and participation by the widest number of partners in whatever way works best for them. The Clearinghouse would never dictate what our partners do. And on the water side, Jim Walbrink with Cal Warren and San Jose Water has been working with his water colleagues, and they're coming up with some workflows and best practices and some templates that can be used for the water partners specifically, tailored to the types of information that they have. Again, they're, as a geologist, I don't know anything about any of that kind of infrastructure, so it's not the Clearinghouse. It wouldn't make sense for us to tell them, here's the template for sharing information that you should use. That's not supporting anybody. It really works best when our partners, when our end users, when our customers, they take ownership of it, and we encourage them to customize it and make use of it in a way that makes the most sense for them. So showing that sharing agreement there and that restriction is an example of why it's really important, because they need that security. And maybe, Jim, you could talk a little bit about the XchangeCore background in terms of maybe a little bit more. We've got the deployment diagram, and you can maybe talk a little bit about the architecture of that a little bit. Are you there? Hello? Are you on mute?
I am. I'm going to make you the presenter. If you can bring up the deployment diagram, I'll talk a little bit about it from a technical standpoint.
Okay. So again, this is the deployment diagram that we're using for this exercise, and we've got, if you go back in the Clearinghouse archive on our website, you'll see different versions of this as we've refined it, and it's increased over the years as we've added partners and capabilities. But the main focus is that each organization can decide the best way to share their information. They can connect which applications they want. The organizations themselves can decide what they want to share. But again, the main goal is to be able to create common operational data rather than common operational picture. That's something that's used a lot, and I always think of common operational pictures as like children. Everybody's a parent, and everybody, their child, their common operational picture is the best and most special, and for them it is, because it supports specifically what their organization is doing. But the common operational picture that's used by public health is not necessarily going to be that useful for law enforcement or for geologists. So, but that information that they have, that plume information, or that restricted access information from law enforcement, or the geologic information that the Clearinghouse has, that's all information that should be shareable and available to everybody. So maybe, Jim, you could talk a little bit more about the architecture on the XchangeCore side.
Sure, and the architecture part is an interesting part of the story because it used to be that those 4 cores in the early days were represented by 4 physical machines. And with the release of XchangeCore 2.0 a little while ago, that is no longer necessary because you can establish virtual cores. And the virtual cores allow you to, with a single physical machine, establish groups of sharing with exactly the same rules, actually even some enhanced rules on geospatial and distance sharing that you used to have to do with 4 different machines. And in this diagram, that used to be, as I said, 4 machines, and now it actually is represented by 2. NASA continues to have their own core, but the other 3 organizations, the 2 that are inputting data, SABRE and the Clearinghouse, and then FEMA that is extracting data, are all operating off of the same physical machine, which enormously reduces the cost, reduces the maintenance, and makes it more possible for what we have a project that will be formally announced at some point in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe, given the holiday season, where we will be hosting some national XchangeCores that people can come in and subscribe to initially over the next year or so. It will be at no cost, so you don't need to have a physical machine. You don't even need to have your own XchangeCore or have installed your own XchangeCore. You can come in and say, I want to build one, and here's the constraints that I want to have, and we'll sit down and literally in a telephone call that'll last less than half an hour, we can create a virtual XchangeCore that your organization and a dozen other organizations and 10 different applications can all go in and use that virtual XchangeCore. So that's going to be an exciting new thing for the new year, and we hope begins to broaden the information sharing capabilities.
Jim, is part of the also one of the components of our clearinghouse, or not the clearinghouse, but the toolbox initiative that we're creating communities of interest and users. So we would have for instance, a utility community of interest. Is that part of what you're talking about?
Yes, the actual community of interest is created in the end user software. XchangeCore is not going to say Jack and Jill are members of this community of interest and John is not. That's at the end user software. But the XchangeCore ability to create these virtual cores, virtual sharing groups, allow that Jack and Jill to belong to one XchangeCore community and John and Jill to belong to another XchangeCore community, and thus the data becomes community accessible. I wouldn't say that it is, it's not the community maker, it's the data clusterer, it's the data orchestrator that communities then can access through their community end user software. So picture it sort of, I guess I might picture it a little bit like the grocery store. We got an aisle there, and I always go down the cereal aisle, and there are a bunch of people I join on the cereal aisle. Well, the delivery truck from XchangeCore delivered all that cereal, and then somebody else is over there on the juice and nutmeg aisle, and that's a different group of people, but one of them may actually come over to the cereal aisle. Well, that set of rules is based on the grocery store, not on XchangeCore that's delivering cereal and nutmeg and juice. That is a strange combination of things, isn't it?
I was thinking that. Well, it's going to be Thanksgiving soon, so maybe you're thinking of that.
Yeah, my turkey is is getting picked up on Saturday. Anyhow, so that gives you a good idea of what this the new way of thinking of XchangeCore, which is very much cloud oriented, because when people said, I need to have everything inside of my organization, give me an XchangeCore, that was a perfectly reasonable way to work, and you can still do that. But when somebody says, you know what, You keep the sharing part out there. I'll control the information between my network and the sharing organization. You confirm to me that that's a secure sharing place. And after that, my whole reason for putting the information out there is to, in fact, share. So if it gets passed on 1 or 2 times down the line, I'm going to understand that rather than keeping it completely locked up inside of my network. So the XchangeCore 2.0, its implementations on the cloud become a very, very powerful capability that can be shared across the whole community. What exists between those, having focused on the XchangeCore itself, what all those lines represent, or actually the arrow at the end of the line, is a connector to XchangeCore. It is a piece of software. And that piece of software is what brings these different applications together. Now, in some cases, FEMA is consuming information out of XchangeCore now, and Anne just shared with me an email she got from folks at FEMA who were very pleased with what they were seeing. But that is being consumed by FEMA, and they didn't actually have to write any software because they're taking one of the industry standard outputs. And by having standard data formats built as the centerpiece of XchangeCore architectural design, an organization like FEMA doesn't have to spend a dime. They can pull the information out of XchangeCore in that industry standard format and then manipulate the heck out of it. But it's just a one-way flow. You see there is a two-way arrow there, and we have in the past had FEMA operating in a two-way flow. This time I believe they're just consuming information. When they did operate in a two-way flow, they were using the ArcGIS Online connector to move data back into XchangeCore. That connector is a third party that sits between ArcGIS Online and the XchangeCore. That connector had to be built, and it happened to have been paid for by the California Office of Emergency Services, and it is freely available and downloadable from the XchangeCore code repository, and becomes that connector. It happens to have a lot more analytical capabilities than many other connectors because it takes advantage of many of the features of ArcGIS Online and allows you to do buffers and pull information in, but fundamentally it's serving exactly the same purpose as, for those of you who are online when we showed WebEOC, as the movement of the data from XchangeCore to WebEOC and from WebEOC back to XchangeCore. Data is the same, it just is visualized differently. A bunch of lines and text in WebEOC. In FEMA, they're pulling it out and putting it in ArcGIS and ArcGIS Online and making beautiful maps out of it. At the core, though, XchangeCore is saying, hey, I got data, you want to use it however you wish. So those connectors become very, very important, and that's what allows us in the bottom right-hand corner with all those additional data sources. A couple of generalized connectors allow us to be able to bring in data. Across the bottom, the WebEOCs and Google Earth and all the others, those are applications that are interacting with XchangeCore. Bottom right-hand side, that's just data. So it's grabbing of a data that's either hosted by that organization and consumed into XchangeCore, or in some cases, I'll call it an interim phase, where they use spot-on response. We build a tool into that allows you to go in and actually use spot-on, if you have an administrative capability, to go in and do GIS file upload. We discovered that a lot of the GIS groups did beautiful information, were able to expose it in the proper formats, but couldn't share it publicly. They didn't have access in their networks to be able to have somebody come in and get their data. So they could create the format, and then they now can come into this GIS file upload, and very easily it says, hey, I'd like to bring some data in, just go off, drag or drop the files here, browse my network, and I'll be able to upload it. And it then is hosted at the Spot on Response XchangeCore server that allows it to then be exposed to the public. So it's up to the organization to be responsible that they're not giving out information that they shouldn't give out. But once it gets out, it's finally available to the public. And we have performed excellent services. Let's see, how did we do that? It was, who was it? Was it EPA this time? I forget who it was that we did show them how to do that. If I came through here, I would find it. Nan, you may remember who we worked with yesterday to bring that up.
That was EPA. That was, California Department of Public Health.
Public Health, okay. Yeah, that's right. So we're able to bring that information in and share it in an organization that couldn't previously share because of IT restrictions, not because of policy restrictions. We were able to break that barrier and provide the hosted location for it. And Ann, you've also done that just on Box.com, and I've done it on Dropbox to be able to move data out of a restricted location, which is restricted not because of the data, but because of the IT requirements, and be able to expose it. So how we bring that information to play, oh, you weren't seeing my screen, were you? So, well, I hope you understood what was going on there.
Did you have the connector up?
Pardon me?
Do you have the connector up?
No, I haven't done I didn't pull the ArcGIS Online connector up. If we don't have any questions, I could take a quick run through on that, if you'd like me to.
And if there's any of our clearinghouse partners, Maria Solis with CPUC, if any of our clearinghouse partners have joined the call, please use the little chat function with the webinar and raise your hand, and happy to get your comments. I know a lot of our participants who are on the agenda today the exercise is ongoing all week, so this is just a peek into the exercise and what we've been doing. So we're just, if people are available, we're encouraging them to participate in the call. So if anybody's out there, please let us know. But otherwise, Jim, go ahead. You probably want to share your screen then.
Yes, give me a minute here I'll just share the screen and everybody can see it from the raw beginning. All right, so we're going to go find ArcGIS Online, and we're going to pick, let's take, which one did I do? Here we go. So a couple of things about this that are important to know. First of all, this is ArcGIS Online. It's the ArcGIS Online in a web application. So all the data you see behind this comes right out of ArcGIS Online. I have all the conventional features, being able to see that this is a school and that one's a school and other things like that. It is inside of this app, though, which is the XchangeCore connector for ArcGIS Online, which by clicking the little XchangeCore logo there, I bring up ArcGIS Online. I bring up the connector, and at this point I say fetch, and what it's going to do is ask me, do I have authentication to be able to look at the Spot on Response XchangeCore? And in fact, I do. At least I hope I do. And it's going to go off and pull in all those many incidents, and all the ones that you've seen there. You've got them starting with the Welcome to the California Earthquake Clearinghouse, all the way down to the field notes ones and the NASA overflights and liquefaction and all the rest of the things. So this is a list item of everything that we've been looking at in all the other applications now inserted in here into the ArcGIS Online connector. I'm going to shut that off because there are a couple other things that we want to take a look at. Actually, I want to go down here, don't I? I don't want to be up there in San Francisco. We've got a couple of things here that we have put together. The first one, all of these Clearinghouse incidents are represented. You've seen them represented in a lot of different ways. All they have these little schoolhouse kind of icons or whatever. So there's the San Andreas fault rupture. And over here we've got, actually, let me turn off my schools so that we can see these a little bit better. So here are all my incidents. There's that Ranchos, keep going to Lowe's and Rancho Santa Margarita. It's about margarita time here on the East Coast. So we've got all those. We also have the observations here. There's the San Andreas fault observation. There's a road closure observation. And here's one that in fact has a school, an attachment. And we can go off here and take a look. And what we see is that picture that we saw earlier in ArcGIS Online now. So one more example of being able to pull all the information from all the different applications in. But
And actually another tool that we're going to be using with CGS is our collector. So we'll be able to bring that data, and we also were able to successfully do that with the capstone exercise last year, is adding CGS data that's collected from CGS scientists using our collector and bringing that into Spot On, and then also ArcGIS Online and other tools as well.
so we've got a, this is the XchangeCore data sitting there. I'm going to come up here to my layers, and what I want to do is let's add those schools back in, and I'll give you a couple of illustrations. We've got the connector over here, and I have a going to associate something with some of these incidents, and I think I'll take pick anyone. Actually, I'm going to pick one that's easy to find later on. I'm going to pick this damage reports. That seems like a logical one. And I center the map on that damage report, and you see it right here. That's the damage report that we've been looking at. And what I want to do now is say, hey, you know what? I've got damage reports. We're in Sacramento now for some reason, but I've got damage reports. And actually, let me try this one. Lenwood, I don't know where Lenwood is, but is it Southern? Okay, there we are. We're at least back down in Southern California. So I've got my Lenwood, where we are over here. And what I want to do is we have some damage reports. So I want to tell people that we've got some schools out here that we ought to be concerned about. So I'm going to use the feature select capability, and I'm going to say I want to work on the public schools. So I can go off and say one of these. This is the one that I care about. I highlight it, and by doing so, I can now send this off to XchangeCore, and thus be able to have associated with this severe damage condition, still gathering information about this school. I can do it as well and say, you know what? It's this area in here that I want to have, and I'm going to highlight those 5 schools, and we're going to send them off to XchangeCore. But what I'm going to do is, let's clear that off for a second here so that we have a nice clean starting point. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to give you, the all this to show you the cool buffering capability, but when this guy loads up, we'll do that. Severe conditions, damage reports. Going to take me right into Linwood, wherever that was. And I'm now going to be able to say we've got a feature. We're going to take the public schools, and I want to do a, let's call it a 2-mile buffer around that incident because I'm pretty sure that that's the way. Or maybe, Ann, you have a better idea. Let's pretend that we know where that earthquake fault is. Let's draw the earthquake fault down this way. And let's get all the schools that are within half a mile of that earthquake fault. Well, interestingly, I would have thought a lot of them would be there. There are only a couple. But what I want to do now is take that. This is going to be a JSON format because this database produces a GeoJSON or an Esri JSON output. If I wanted it in KML, I would click and I would discover I got a blank space there. It doesn't produce it. So again, we're limited or driven by the data that takes place. It'll be the VG17 critical infrastructure, but this is going to be schools around Barstow. And you'll note down here, as I scroll across this area, this has all the information about the school. We've got, it was created a little while ago. Let's get into where's the school information here. And here we go. Well, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Sorry. Oh, I thought there was a lot more information about the school than that. Okay. Whatever information about the school we have. So I'm now going to submit that. And what that does is get successfully added, if we're doing well, to XchangeCore. Now, what's happening is that's going to percolate through XchangeCore. And let's remember this, severe damage conditions, because we need to go find that to be able to see those couple of schools. And to do that, I'm going to come back here, come back here to my XchangeCore, and I think what I will do, oh, here's one quick note, and this will take a second or so, but you notice an A here. You notice all of mine are alphabetical. More often than not, if you care and you're out locally, what you're going to end up doing is caring about the ones that are close to you. So here I've now reordered all this information, and this hazmat contamination is 2.05 miles away from me, and there's a historic structure. If I want to go out and look at that, I'm going to grab that information and go those couple of miles to be able to get to that historic structure to organize it. But I'm going to go back to the A part and get that reorganized. And now let's go down to, we have, what was that called? Damage something?
It was up in Barstow. I don't know what your area of interest is.
Yeah, I go all the way to Washington, D.C., I think. Or was it severe damage? What do you remember?
Damage,
Pardon me?
Thought I saw it. Yeah, I think it's severe damage, I think.
Severe damage condition, still gathering information. So I come out here, and that was somebody. Who was that? That was Joe who put that in. They said they had severe damage conditions and they were still gathering information. Here we go. He joined the major earthquake damages, and what we added was the GIS. Those were two observations. We added from ArcGIS something called Schools Around Barstow. If I click on this, and now I need to go find Barstow again. There we go. I'm going to see the two schools around Barstow with all the information in there that we had in that original ArcGIS online where are we here? That we had in that original school information. There's all exactly the same information, if that's the right school, about that school. We have now brought into XchangeCore, served up here to spot-on response, and if we're really going to be bold about this, let's go find ourselves I'm going to go search for Barstow. And Barstow, and we have, in fact, the severe damage conditions still gathering information. The diamond there, we've got the circle, and what this says is that that's visible infrastructure. We got something else hiding back here. Oh, I'm sorry, that was all JSON. Not going to be able to show it to you in Google Earth because it doesn't read Esri JSON format. Sorry, I got lost on that. So it doesn't come in there and tell you that information. Spot-on response has learned how to read the Esri JSON format, so we're able to show you the school's locations in spot-on response. So that takes us through a couple of other application tools, and I guess we'll do one more thing. What the heck? As long as we're here, let me close these things out and come here, and what I would like to do, we now discover that one of these schools out here actually has a problem. And I'm going to now highlight this school. So let me refetch this, clear this off just so that we don't have anything that's that we have scurrying around in the background. And let's come back to, and let's go find that place in Barstow over here. And I now have decided that this particular school right there has big problems, the Silver Valley Academy. So what I'm going to do is go feature select California schools, a single one, and I'm going to pick this Silver Academy. And it turns yellow like that. Now the plus incident, I'm going to say this isn't just a school that I want somebody to observe. This is a school that has a problem. So I'm going to call it the Silver Academy. And I'm going to say that this has a major collapse.
I think you wrote Sliver.
That might have been. And that would have only been a problem if I was trying to retrieve it. And I'm going to submit that. And what that has done now is created an incident in XchangeCore with all the information related to that specific school. Everything that was in this ArcGIS record is now going to be part of that incident record. And if we go back to spot-on response, it's going to take a minute because each one of them polls at about a 1-minute rate, so it could take us a couple of minutes, but let's go back and let's find that Barstow area that we were in before. And you know what, I'm going to come in here. Do we have anything silver? No, it hasn't percolated through the system yet, but we'll take a look at that again in a minute. But when that arrives, you'll have seen that that school went from being infrastructure that somebody spent lots of time building in their GIS. The second thing we did was say, hey, here's an incident. There's severe damage around here that we need to inspect, and here are a couple of schools that you ought to inspect, to now saying, this school, in fact, is a problem, and you guys need to address it directly. So remember when Ann was talking about the hierarchy of information, that you're going from sort of casual observation to writing an observation, to visualizing that observation and visualizing the incident related to it. Well, we have gone from being something that was stuck in a GIS someplace to something that became an observation or a GIS associated with one of these yellow incidents to becoming the yellow incident. And Ann, it seems like we're moving towards conclusion. You want to offer any concluding comments?
No, I just want to thank everybody and who's participated in the exercise and providing the incident information, all of our partners, the XchangeCore team. Over the last 6 years, they've been a great help to us in being able to share our information more effectively with more of our partners. And we're going to continue to grow and build this. And I would just encourage everybody, as I said, we take every opportunity to practice and exercise. Coming up on the schedule for 2017, the USGS Haywired project, for those of you in the Bay Area. It's the USGS looking at the impacts of a major earthquake on the Hayward Fault, and the Clearinghouse and our information sharing capabilities are going to be a part of that project. We hope that this exercise gave you an opportunity to see what the possibilities are, and we invite you to become one of our partners. And again, nobody's ever obligated to do anything. Where there's no fees, no dues, no meetings. Well, we have meetings, but no, other than just you have an interest and willingness to support public safety and information sharing, and you're willing to roll up your sleeves and sit down at the table and help us figure these things out, because the Clearinghouse is what all of our partners make of it. It truly is a team effort, and we've got some phenomenal people, and everything that you see, everything that you see demonstrated is the result of a lot of hard work from people from a number of organizations. So, and again, the DHS Toolbox project that's being led by our partners with the Bay Area Center for Regional Disaster Resilience and all of our other associated partners in that project. There's a lot of capabilities here that we are hoping to continue to improve and apply to other aspects of response recovery and regional resiliency. So if you have any questions following this, if you think about it later, shoot me an email. We're happy to talk to you, and we'll have some follow-up meetings, and we hope you'll join some of those meetings. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Well, thank you, Ann, from the XchangeCore community side for providing such an exhaustive look at all this, and to everybody else who's offered their comments in today. And let me just do one quick look here, see whether anybody has raised their hand for any questions. Nope, no questioners. So let me bid everybody an excellent afternoon, a wonderful Thanksgiving to all, and we will catch up with you soon. Bye, everybody.